Okay, we got it. All right. So obviously, we are approaching Chanukah. So we're going to talk a little bit about Chanukah. Parshas Miketz is usually Shabbos Chanukah when there's only one Shabbos. Last week we talked about Vayeshev, also about Chanukah, because sometimes Vayeshev is also Shabbos Chanukah when there are two Shabbos in Chanukah. Okay, so we'll start like this. There is a Chazal, Piska, the Rabbasi, says like this. Ma godlu ma'asecha Hashem. Hashem, your acts are amazing. So great. Ma'oidom ku machshvel secha. We say that in Mizmor Shili Yom HaShabbos. Omar Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Chanina said, Be'esri mechamisha be'kislev. On the 25th day of Kislev. That's a day. The 25th day of Kislev, Nigmara Meleches HaMishkan. The Mishkan was finished. The work and all the work in setting up the Mishkan was done, except putting it together. Va'asa mikupol. It was folded up, but everything was done, and it stayed that way ad echad ben Nisan, until the first day of Nisan. She'ekdimu Moshe echad ben Nisan. That Shehekima Moshe be'echad ben Nisan. That Moshe Rabbeinu put it up, stand it up. All the things that were ready to be put together, he put it together on the first day of Nisan. So it was ready, it was complete on the 25th day of Kislev. But it wasn't actually put into use, and it wasn't put together until the Rosh Chodesh Nisan. On the first day of the month of the first month, then Tokim Mishkan Oel Moed. Then you should put the Oel Moed together. During the entire time between Chanukah and Rosh Chodesh Nisan, that it was all folded up and not ready and not usable, they were complaining, what's going on? It's all ready, put it together already. Something wrong? Why don't you put it up right away? Shema Dothi Rabbo? Maybe you did something wrong? That's what the Klal Yisrael. That's the Klal Yisrael. But that's what they said. You did something wrong. Shechoshav la'arev simchas hamishkan b'chodesh shenolad bo Yitzchak. And the reason he didn't put it together, well, first of all, the pasuk didn't say you should put it together, but the reason it was not put together is because they were waiting for the month and when Yitzchak Avinu was born, and that was Chodesh Nisan. Yitzchak Avinu was we got to explain what that all means. So, because Yitzchak was the Amud HaAvoda, he was that we have Gemilas Chasadim and Torah and Avoda, right? Go backward. Torah is Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu, Ishtam, Yoshev Ohalim. He was sitting, he was by Shem Ve'ever for 14 years. He was the Av HaTorah. Then you have the Av HaAvoda. Who's the Av HaAvoda? Was Yitzchak. Avoda is what the Mishkan is all about. That we do our Avodas Hashem. That's how we have a substitute. It's called Tefillah. But instead of the Karbanos and all of the Avodah that was done in the Mishkan and in the Beis HaMikdash, we have the Tefillah. So he was the Av of Avodah. And the Av of Gemilas Chasadim, of course, was Avraham Avinu. So we see that that was necessary to wait until the Av of Avodah, the one that is the source of our Avodah, was in the world, so to speak, and on the month that he was born, that's when they set up the Mishkan. Good. Then the Medrash continues. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Laila Shalem LeKislev. I made you wait until Nisan, but I have to pay Kislev back. Mashi Lem Lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What did he, how did he pay Kislev back? Hu Chanukah Space Chashmonot. That was that's Chanukah. When the Chashmonoim came, and that house of Chashmonoim were victorious over Yavan, and they lit the menorah. So that is, in a sense, paying back the month of Kislev. The month of Kislev had a taina. I wanted to be the one. It should have been by me. It was ready. It was all set. He was given the instructions on Yom Kippur, and he spent all that time from Yom Kippur until Chof Hey Kislev, actually. So Chanukah is the payback to Kislev. Okay, that's what the measure says. We got to know what's going on here. Number one. So you're telling me the Chanukah's Beis HaChashmonaim, which is Chanukah, the dedication of the Mishkan was of the Beis Hamikdash was on Chofei Kislev. Why did they choose? Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu choose Beis HaChashmonaim? There were many other times when they were not Chanukah, but there was the first Beis Hamikdash, the second Beis Hamikdash, the Mishkan Shiloh, the Mishkan in Gilgal. They had many places that they could have been a Chanukah, and a necessity there was a Chanukah. What was so special about Chanukah? That Chanukah is the time that the payback came. So from this we see that the Chanukah's Beis HaChashmonaim, what took place in Chanukah, was the closest to the Mishkan in the Midbar. That the state of the Klal Yisrael and the state of the renewed Beis Hamikdash, was very similar to the Mishkan, and that's why it was Chanukah that had to pay back for their Chanukah for the month of Kislev. So that's very nice. So it seems very nice, but I got news for you. The Chanukah of the Beis Hamikdash was seemingly not like the Mishkan, because the Mishkan was a Mishkan. We had Mishkan in Gilgal and in Shiloh and so on, but this was the Beis Hamikdash. It was already a Beis Hamikdash. It was just a reconnecting, making a new renewing. That's all right. Rebirth of the Beis Hamikdash. So the Gemara says like this. This is what we have to understand. First of all, we know that the Beis Hamikdash wasn't destroyed. It wasn't like they rebuilt the Beis Hamikdash. Beis Hamikdash wasn't destroyed. It was mechulal. It was desecrated. It was metameit. They made it tamei. They defiled it, but they didn't destroy it. So the Gemara says the Greeks despised the avonim of the Mizbeach. They hated it. They despised it. Kotzalahem. That was like they couldn't stand it. The Yaktu Anshe Yovon, as it says, Bo Pritzim B'chililuha. They wanted to make it ordinary. They couldn't stand that it was so special. This entity of our avoda to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Gemara continues to say like this. Shaninu, we've learned. Mizrachis Tzvonis Bo Gonzu Beis Hashmonaim Es Abnei HaMizbeach. The northern corner, the northeastern corner of the Beis Hamikdash, there was a place where they set aside, they took apart the defiled Beis Mizbeach, and they put it away into Geniza. Is She'anshe Yavan hated it. V'amar Rav Sheshes shekotzu bo b'hakravas korbanos la'avodah zarah. How did they show their disgust for the Beis Hamikdash? Was by sacrificing to avodah zarah. V'avonim nesru ba'ano, and they couldn't use it anymore because something that was used for avodah zarah, you're not allowed to take any pleasure from. L'chein godzu oso be'oso lishka. They put it away over there. So that's one point. Okay, so we have a sense here, something is going on. There's somehow that this Chanukah is connected to the Mishkan in the Midbar. That much we see. And we have to understand what is that special connection. And there's a third point here, which will open up the whole thing for us, and we'll be able to see deeper into what's going on. Right after, in Parshas Noso, when all the Nesiim were bringing the korbanos for the Chanukah's HaMishkan, right? So that was at the end of Parshas Naso. In the beginning of Parshas Ba'aloscha, it talks about Aaron lighting the menorah, Ba'aloscha Saneros, when you light up the menorah. Now, what does that say to me? Why are the two juxtaposed one another? One thing has to be with the Chanukah of the Mizbeach, and the other is lighting the menorah. Why were they put together? Say Chazal, that Aaron HaKohen was depressed, felt bad. He was very sad because he and his Shevet had no role. They did not offer any karbanos for together with the other Nesiim. The 11 tribes did, or 12 tribes, because there was Menashe and Ephraim, did do it, but his tribe, Levi, didn't do anything in the Chanukah HaMizbeach. So he felt very bad. Chazal explained, therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as a consolation to Aaron. Now, this is a consolation. We got a lot of consolations here. We got a consolation to Kislev, now a consolation to Aaron. And it's all coming to Chanukah. So Chanukah is that one big consolation. They said, but where do you see that? It doesn't say Chanukah. All it says is that, okay, you feel bad. I'm going to give you something that they don't have. What don't they have? They don't light the menorah. You are instructed and have the job of lighting the menorah and preparing the lights of the menorah, Hatovas Haneros, and so on, because they're going to exist forever. Wait a minute. If there's no Beis Hamikdash, there's no lighting of the menorah. So what's the consolation? You were telling him, Aaron HaKohen, that he's going to have a special consolation, that he's going to light the menorah because it's going to last forever. Not going to last forever. Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. When you destroy Beis Hamikdash, and you don't have any lighting of the menorah. So the Ramban says here openly that it's referring, the menorah, that's the consolation, is Chanukah. So another consolation. That what's happening here, the Ramban is telling us that it's going to last forever. The Chanukah of the Chashmonoim, when it rededicated the Beis Hamikdash, lasts forever. There's no more Beis Hamikdash. What is going on? There is no Beis Hamikdash. So what does it mean it lasts forever? Because the takana of the Beis Din of Chashmonoim was to create a Yom Tif that's going to last forever. And we, all of Klal Yisrael, are part of the consolation to Aaron HaKohen, because we're going to be year after year after year, and it's been a long time. And we light the menorah. What are we doing when we light the menorah? Oh, what are we doing when we light the menorah? You know, it has become, unfortunately, when you see all the advertisements and all that, everybody's trying to make money from Hanukkah. I mean, they're talking about commercialization. Everybody makes money. Well, buy this present, buy that present, do this, do that, do that. It's all going. We're going to have this party. It's all, and you have to pay for the party. That's wonderful. Is that what Hanukkah is about? Of course not. Of course not. And we have to understand a little bit deeper. Chazal, so in Haneros Ramban in Ba'aloscha, right at the beginning of Ba'aloscha says it. That it was the Beis Chashmonoim, that was the consolation. And what is the consolation? The consolation lies in the fact that there is now a Yom Tov called Chanukah. This you must know. That the Gemara says, my Chanukah. What's Chanukah? The Gemara says, it tells us the whole story, right? What was the story? Story was that they beat the Imperial Greek army. When you think about it, it's just mind-boggling. Here you have 13 men who were able to defeat the entire Greek army. I mean, that's a miracle in and of itself, obviously, right? But that wasn't all. There was something deeper than that. And then they come into the Beis Hamikdash and Timu Kol Hashmanim. We know that everything was tamei. What does it mean everything was tamei? Everything was defiled. Everything was used but the Gemara tells us that in the Beis Hamikdash, Tuma, Hutra, Betzibur. Tuma is all right when it's a communal point. You don't pay attention to the Tuma because the klal overrides the Tuma. We as individuals can't, but Klal Yisrael can override Tuma. So Dover said that Tzibur is even Betuma, you're allowed to do it. So they could have picked any one of them. So what was in this little pitcher of oil that was so special? Oh, he had the Kohen Gadol sign on it. What's that? What makes this? What is going on here? We're making such big deals. The big deal is that it lasted for 8 days instead of 1 day. That's a big deal. That's telling me that the Rabbeinu Shalom is inserting himself within. That's the big deal about the lighting the Hanukkah candles. And when I say lighting the Hanukkah candles, I mean the teeny little itsy bitsy weeny lights that come up from a little bit of shemen and a little bit of a wick. It's not the Persuma Nisa has nothing to do with size. That's not Persuma Nisa. Persuma Nisa is that this house that has the light of the menorah is a replica of the Beis Hamikdash. What you're looking at is the Beis Hamikdash that was rededicated, and that light remains on, and the pasuk and the Gemara says like this: Kavu, after the miracle, Kavu Yom Tov L'Shana Haba, they made a Yom Tov L'Hoidoisu L'Halel. That was the purpose of this Yom Tov. The purpose of the Yom Tov is not buying presents. That came from the Goyim. You should know that. But what? Buying presents on Chanukah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you. When you buy presents, it's a secular, irreligious thing to do. It has nothing to do with the Yom Tov of Chanukah. You want to buy a present for somebody? Buy a present. But don't call it a Chanukah present. Call it I love you present. I don't care. But it's not a Chanukah present. It shouldn't be a Chanukah present. What's Chanukah? What? Chanukah gelt is something else. Something else.
Yeah.
Gelt is a different story. Yeah, that's right. The whole purpose was to give the children Chanukah gelt. Yes, your children, it doesn't matter how big it is. They're children, right? You give them Chanukah gelt. What are you giving Chanukah gelt for? You're giving Chanukah gelt because there was a time when you weren't allowed to learn Torah, and the people were playing games, seemingly. Yeah, and what kind of game was it? Neis Gadol Hayasham. That was the dreidel. What was the game? So in order to encourage them to play the game of Neis Gadol Hayasham or Neis Gadol Hayapo, they gave them a few coins. In my day, you got a quarter, you thought you were happy. You know, it was the thrill, right? You change it in for pennies, and you had 25 pennies. You know, it was wonderful. Okay, so now they established Haneros Halalu Koideshem. That in Haneros Halalu, right? Haneros Halalu Koidesh. What does that mean? It's Koidesh. What made these Kodesh? You don't say that on Shabbos when you light the candle. Haneros Halalu Koideshem. What's so Kodesh about it? What makes it separate, special, unique, sanctified? What is it? What is in this Neiros? What's in this Neiros is L'cha Asisa Shem Gadol B'Kadosh Ba'Olamecha. Our battle with Greece was a battle of cultures. Not only were they trying to make decrees to stop us from our religion, and that's the reason they made those decrees, was to have this culture battle. They wanted the battle was the battle of Chokhmah. The battle was a battle of values. I think we mentioned last week every one of those decrees: Shabbos, Bris Milah, Rosh Chodesh, Tiboy the Hegmon Tchila. All of those things were to minimize and destroy and to obliterate the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. They felt that this is equality, diversity, inclusiveness. This is the culture that has gone back to Greece. They couldn't stand it that you were unique, that you held yourself separate. By the way, that's what Kedusha is. That's why the Chanukah Licht are Kodesh. And in addition, we're making our home into a Beis Hamikdash Ma'at. And when we light the Chanukah Licht candles, we are lighting the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash Ma'at. Our homes become, and that is a message for us. To stop. Now, is my home a Beis Hamikdash Ma'at? Is it a place that Kadosh Baruch Hu Shechina would be comfortable? That's what the lighting of the menorah is all about. So you have to take, once you put this together, you'll see the direct connection between the Chanukah's Beis HaChashmonoim and the Mishkan in the Midbar. You see, because where do you light the menorah? In your house, wherever you are. And if you live in Honolulu, you light it in Honolulu. And if you live in Kazakhstan, you do it in Kazakhstan. Wherever you are, you've turned your place into a Beis HaMikdash Ma'at. Yeah, wherever you are. It's interesting. The Beis HaMikdash, Bayis Rishon, Bayis Sheni, Mishkan Shiloh, Mishkan in Gilgal. All of those places were unique and specific and special places. That's where the Shochanti B'Socham, that's where the Shechina dwelled. In these, you can't build a Beis HaMikdash in Tzfas. You couldn't do that. You couldn't do that. When that happens, I get nervous. Anyway, you couldn't do it anywhere else. It had to be in a specific place. Where was the Mishkan? Did it have a place? Wherever they
settled, right?
Hello? Are you talking to me? Wherever they know it, I don't know what it was. I must have hit something. It's okay.
Said what?
Oh, it was you? No. Anyway, do you realize what you said? What you said was so right on that in the Mishkan, wherever Klal Yisrael was, that's where the Mishkan was. It wasn't dependent on a particular place. And that's what took place. That's why Chanukah is so special. And that's the reason why Chanukah is a consolation for the Mishkan, because it's just like the Mishkan. Because wherever you are, that's where the Shechina is. And when we sit down, and this would be just an interesting thing, the Hasidic Rebbes, especially not so much here, because here you light outside, but when it used to be in Chutz La'aretz, when you had a light in the window, or for the Pesum and Nisa, they would sit down after they lit the candles, pull up a chair next to the menorah, and spend time thinking about what we just said. Is my house a Beis HaMikdash Ma'at? Think of the Nisim and the Neflaos. Ulecha Asisa, we say Nala Nisim, Shem Gadol v'Kadosh Olamecha. Hashem made a name for himself. That's really something. What does that mean, Hashem? Where else do we say that Hashem made a name? We also say that we say it in Yetzias Mitzrayim. In Yetzias Mitzrayim, Atah Asisa Shem Gadol, you made yourself a big name. What does that mean? So I'll tell you what it means. We know at Yetzias Mitzrayim, the pasuk says, "Va'era el ha'avos," and I appeared to the avos, "Bekel shakai ushmi Hashem lo notati elav," and I didn't let him know my name Yud Kei Vav Kei. Now, what's the difference between Kel Shakai? It's one of the names of Hashem. Kel Shakai Elokim Tzvokos. We've got all kinds of names to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What is the difference between that and Yud Kei Vav Kei? Well, we know that Yud Kei Vav Kei you can't pronounce. You're not allowed to pronounce. And even in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, only when the Kohen Gadol was blessing Klal Yisrael for the Birchas Kahuna, that's when they said the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei properly. And then it says in the time of Shimon HaTzadik, who was the first Kohen Gadol in the Beis HaMikdash, who came from, his Masorah came from the Nevi'im, the Dvar Hashem, right? He got that from the Nevi'im of the Anshe Knesset Agdola. He was a member of the Anshe, but wasn't a Navi. And he was the first Kohen. At his death, they stopped using the Shem. They stopped using the Shem Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. They did not pronounce it anymore because the Shechina wasn't there. In the second Beis HaMikdash, the Shechina wasn't there. So what was it? So you had the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei that was revealed at Yetzias Mitzrayim, right? With all the wonders and miracles that were not the abrogation of nature. We've said that many times. What took place at Yetzias Mitzrayim was not the abrogation of nature. In other words, you moved it aside, you manipulated, it wasn't the manipulation of nature. It was not the manipulation of nature, using the natural laws. Let me give you an idea what I mean. You know, you're not allowed to daven for a nes. Is that correct? You know that? You're not allowed to daven for a nes, that Hashem should do a nes. You don't do it. So if a doctor says that the situation is terminal, he's going to die, can you daven? You're asking for a nes. And the answer is, of course you can. And what's the difference? Because you see, people also recover when they're terminally ill. In nature, there is such a thing as a recovery. So what you're really doing is Hashem manipulating nature that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not mind, because you don't know, you can't see it, it's not clear that it's Hashem, and so on, until those who want to know. But up until then, you're allowed to daven for such a nes. Can you daven that a woman who's pregnant, that the baby in the 6th month, that if it's a boy, turn it into a girl, if it's a girl, turn it into a boy? I mean, today it really doesn't really matter, but you know, because we'll control it, you know, we're in charge. So it's crazy, right? It's crazy. But are you allowed to daven for that? Of course not. Why? Because that's nigla. That's a clear nest. That's not manipulating nature. That's abrogating nature. The baby's a man, it's a man. That's a big riot. That's what they're doing today is crazy. If a man is a man, a boy is a boy, is a boy is a boy. And if you're davening for the boy to be a girl, that's called abrogating nature. You're changing nature. Anyway, leave that be. Bottom line. So there was a Shem Gadol in Yetzias Mitzrayim because the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei became known to the entire world. Up until then, it was Kel Shakai and Tzvakos and things, those elements, like the fire. Avraham Avinu went into a fire. Are you allowed to say, don't the fire daven, please don't let me burn? No. If you're burning in a fire and you come along and say, don't let the fire burn me. Can you do that? No, because you're canceling nature. But can you daven and say, Rebbe, please send somebody to put out the fire? That you can do. Because within nature, you can do that. So what I'm trying to say is that the Yem Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is totally outside of nature. And that's what they hated. That's what the Greeks were so opposed to. They were opposed to our recognition, both intellectually and emotionally, that there's a higher experience and a higher metzius and a higher reality than the one that we face here in the natural world. That's what they opposed. They didn't oppose. You know what? You want to be religious? Okay, you got your religion, I've got my religion, but just don't bring God in. There's no such thing as having a God outside here of a power that is in ultimate control. Right? They didn't believe in any of that. Because all their gods were human. All their gods were human. They didn't in any way connect to they had a fuck. They were superhuman. Superman you can believe in. So they were superhuman. They all believed in a Superman God. That's all. It was just a Superman. But he was very strong. He was the eyesight was great. He was very fast. He was very full of beauty. You name it, but it's all physical. But the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the 4-letter ineffable name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the essence. I'll show you something even deeper than that, if you don't mind going a little bit off. You know, have you ever heard the expression "B'chvoidoi v'atzmai"? Right? He did it all by himself. It's become mundane. Is only to be related to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The etzem of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the atzmius of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the essence of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, that's the atzmo, that's the Shem. All the other one is covered. That's his malchus, his kingship. It's one of his midos. He has a midah called malchus, that he is in control, okay, that he's the boss. No, we don't know. Can't help it. We don't know anything about kings, right? I mean, you don't feel life and death in anybody. I don't care who the guy is, what level he's on. Yeah, they don't accept, of course, unless you're senile and you're ready to lose your presidency, then you can control life and death. But that's a whole different story. That's a shagas. I'm talking about commutation of life of people who are supposed to be killed, so he can stop it. So I should be very nervous to be in his presence because he has the power of life and death. But it's ridiculous. A true king, every moment of your life, you're dependent on his life, on his will of giving you life or allowing you life in a physical human king. In terms of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's the same thing. The covet of Malchus, the bracha you make on seeing a king, Asher cholach mikvoidoi liyireyav. He took part of his covet and he gave it to people who fear him, and that's the king. You see a Jewish king, you have to make a bracha asher cholach mikvoidoi liyireyav. When you see a non-Jewish king, you say asher nosan mikvoidoi le'asar b'dam. He gave, cholach means you're a chelik of me. You're a part of me. My covet, okay? Your covet is always the external, the outside. It says that Rabbi Yochanan said that the Mona mechabdusa, my garments, that's my covet. You wear special garments, so your king wears a special garment. Kohen Gadol wore a special garment. But the Kohen Gadol wasn't because of the garments. He was, unique and special and great because of the garments. It was because he was unique and special and great. He wore special garments. So what did the garments do? That was his external expression of, but it's not who he was. Who he was much greater than the external. So when people dress up, right? So is that them? No, of course, it's only a lavush. The essence of something is the etzem. It's the thing itself. By the way, Lashon HaKodesh, I can't help it. What's an etzem? A bone. Why is it called? Why is it my essence? I'm a bone. I'm a stick bone. I'm more than a bone. But what does the bone do? It's the structure of my essence. If there were one had no bones, what would they have? Skin and steaks. I mean, what else would be left? Muscle and skin. What else is left? There's nothing there. What makes you be clutch? No bones. Bones is what gives you who you are, your form. So that's the etzem. That's why it's called etzem. It's the essence of something. That's why by the way, that's why we don't wear our bones on the outside. Seriously, they have to have a covering, our bones. Because there's the etzem, and then there's the lavush, the garment that gives you cover. Yes, it's very good. Wear a long coat. Oh, rabbi, it's all meaningless. That's so secondary. So when these little lichtalas, this ness of the shemen, for a little bit of oil that would only last one day to last 8 days is not a manipulation of nature. You can't manipulate nature to make oil last longer. You can take away some of the oil, you can add some of the oil, but you can't make it last longer. It lasts as long as it lasts. And yet it lasted 8 days. So what was nigle? What was revealed on Chanukah? The Yud Kei Vav Kei. So even though it was canceled, so to speak, and they didn't allow the Yud Kei Vav Kei to be said in the Beis Hamikdash when the Kohanim benched the people, but at Chanukah l'shem asisa shem gadol v'kadosh ba'olamecha, you brought back the shem gadol, the shame, the atzmi, who Hakadosh Baruch Hu really is, that there is a Borei Olam, and that infuriated the Greeks. And that what?
They knew about the name?
They knew everything. Let me tell you something. I don't know how to put it. All we do is build on what they knew. The Greeks, I think I mentioned the other day, there was Alexander the Great who conquered the entire world. No one conquered like he conquered. No one. And he was only 33 years old, or he died when he was 33 years old. So you can imagine, he conquered the whole world. And then he died at 33. And then what happened? It got split up. The Seleucids and all of the the Assyrians and the Egypt, all of them. And it fell apart. It lasted another 4 years, and it was all over. But the culture of Egypt, the culture of Greece, the Rebbe of Alexander the Great, Aristotle, what he started and what he spread and what he conquered, the whole world is still suffering from what he started and conquered. And benefiting. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that chochma b'goyim tamin. We benefit from the science. We have benefited from science, and we will benefit even more from science. But we have to know that the science is merely the external. But what's driving it, which they would love to find out, all the scientists are looking for the unified field theory. Am I right? Thank you. No, I mean it. Sometimes my memory doesn't work so well. The unified field theory is that they want to bring everything together into one core, one source, everything has to be explained with this beginning point. Unified theory. Yeah, they'll never get it because they're not willing to accept there's a Rabban Shalom. The only thing that is unifying is Ruchnius. With Ruchnius, you and me, we're one. We both share. I always say that. Can we share in my ice cream? Is it possible? What do you think? Is it possible to share an ice cream? Answer is absolutely not. Because the ice cream you eat, I can't eat. And the one I eat, you can't eat. So we don't share. Can we both do a mitzvah together and get the full mitzvah? Not a half a mitzvah. I get a full mitzvah. And you get a full mitzvah if we do it together. Why? Because the Ruach is ma'ached. That's the Maharal, very clearly writes this. The Ruach he doesn't talk about ice cream, but he does talk about being ma'ached, unifying. What unifies us in this universe is Ruchnius, the Ruchnius. Now, where am I holding? Okay. Now, so, listen to this, and this is something that very much relates to us. The Pasuk says like this: even when they were in the land of their enemies, that means we weren't doing so well. We were in Golis, yeah? Lo ma'astim v'lo gialtim lechalosam, I didn't abhor them, I didn't obliterate them, l'hafer brisi itam, because that would nullify my covenant with them. So even though they're bad and they're not good, but I'm not going to utterly destroy them. So the Gemara darshans those words: Lo ma'astim v'lo gialtim lechalosam l'hafer brisi itam. So lo me'astim, it says b'mei kastim. That's in the time of the Babylonians. Sha'amarati lohem Daniel, Hananya, uMishael, v'Azariah. They're the ones that saved Klal Yisrael. V'lo gialtim, and I didn't abhor them. B'mei Yevonim, in the time of the Yevonim, of the Greeks. She'amarati lohem Shimon HaTzadik, v'Chashmono Yubanav v'Matisyahu Kohen Gadol. Right? So we had people who were coming to our aid. Then it says lechalosam. No. B'mei Haman shamarti lohem Mordechai v'Esther, also saved. L'hafer brisi tam b'mei Romoim, in the time of the Romans. That's us. She'amarti lohem es beis Rebbe v'chachmei Adoros. That's through the Torah. Rebbe and he was the Nasi, and then the Nasi, his children were Nasiim, and then on and on and on until it was given over to Chachmei Hadoros, to all the Chachamim of Torah in the Baal Peh, in all the generations. That's what's saving us. Ki ani Hashem Elokeichem, lo osid lobo she'ein kol umma v'loshen yichodo lishlek behem. And in the end, ani Hashem Elokeichem, that will be a time of Mashiach where nobody can touch us. So these were all Golison, right? Golos Babel, Golos Pars Moadai, Golos Yovan, and so on. So the Mashah asks, it says, "Be Yosam be'eretz oyevehem," when they are in the land of their enemies, in Golus. So how can you say that in the time of the Yevanim that was be'eretz oyevehem? We were here in Eretz Yisrael. It wasn't. How can you say that? So he answers so beautifully. The Mashah answers that when Yavan is in charge of Eretz Yisrael, when the culture of Yavan is in charge of Eretz Yisrael, it's considered Eretz Oiveyem. You're in the land of your enemy. When what's ruling is not the ultimate truth of Torah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it's Greek culture that's ruling, and we want to be like the Greeks, the Misyavnim, then it's considered, Eretz Yisrael itself is considered Eretz Oiveyim. They're in the land of their enemies. Now, it belongs to us, but when we're not in control, the real control. So that's why it's called Eretz Oiveyim. So what have we got? What the lights of Chanukah transformed Eretz Yisrael. It turned back Eretz Yisrael into not being Eretz Oiveyim. It turned Eretz Yisrael into being Eretz Yisrael, our land and our place and where we belong. Okay? So, I just want to add one more thing. There's a concept of Chanukah Habayis, right? That's what we're talking about, Chanukah. What does Chanukah mean? Dedication, Chinuch. What is chinuch? Education. No. So there. I like that. It has nothing to do with education. It has nothing to do with amassing information.
Standing them up straight.
That too. No, chinuch. It has nothing to do with education. What they consider. I mean, you're telling me people go to university today to get an education? No. Okay, so we understand that it's not education. So there's a very interesting thing. It says like this. There's a pasuk in Mishlei, Chanoch lanara pi darko. You have to teach, instruct, dedicate the young person, al pi darko, in a way that's fitting for him. Why? Gam ki yaskin lo yosur mimenu. Because you don't want him to stray from what you're teaching him, yeah? You have to do it in the right way. Yeah? Chanoch lanar al pi darko. So there are two ways of understanding this. The first way is, as I just said, that he'll stay on the path that you have guided him on. The second way to understand it is that he will not stray, not from the path, but from being a mechunach. He will constantly be learning himself. He will be improving himself. He'll be once you taught him properly, al pi darko, gam ki yaskin, he'll be an old geezer. And you know what he'll be doing? He'll be learning Torah, and it will be far greater and far more effective and far deeper. What happened? How's that? That's what the Rebbe Yisrael Salanter beautifully, how he defined it. And I heard this from Rav Hutner, that you've got to teach properly. You've got to instruct properly. You've got to dedicate him to stay online. But it doesn't mean to stay on the derech necessarily that you instilled in him. It means that he is on the chinuch is constant, not that the derech is constant. There are different derachim in Yiddishkeit. There are all kinds of drachim. So it has to be within the frame. But there are drachim. The derech, my Rebbe, I don't purport to be able to do as he did. I can, try to imitate a little bit, but it's not. I have to do it. But I was trained to keep on training myself. Okay. So
Nothing to do with the personal capacity of the child.
That I didn't say that. I didn't say you're saying that. I didn't say that. You're saying that. No, it does avada because that's al pi darko. So it has to do with capacity. It has to do with a lot of things. It has to do with his personality. It has to do with capacity. It has to do with his character. You know, you're not some kids are these little geschmack. It's a kinderlach, you know, you can kiss them. Right? And then there are these kids that get on your nerve, right? So you got to know how to deal with each of them. So it is personalized. You have to be, that's what it doesn't say ki darko shel harebi. It says chanoch lanak darko. What's best for him? Okay. All right. There's so much more here. I won't have time to finish, so I'll just add one last thing. The lighting of the lights means to dispel the darkness. Push it, right? What emerges from Chazal is that there were two types of choshech that the Yevonim introduced into Klal Yisrael. The first choshech was actually translating the Torah into Greek. That was the first thing. That, you know, hello. I don't mind if you've got a special, you know, holy book. But don't tell me it's coming from God. And in Al Anisim, what do we say? La'avira mechukei ritzonecha ulahashkicham torasecha. La'avira mechukei ritzonecha means they don't let us do mitzvahs, correct? No, isn't learning Torah a mitzvah? Of course it is. So that's included in La'avira mechukei ritzonecha. What do you tell me? Lahashkicham torasecha. The answer is lahashkicham, to make them forget torasecha, that the Torah comes from you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's the translation of Torah into the Greeks. We got it too. And so that, and the Gemara says it, that's why they couldn't write down the Torah Sheba'al Peh, because if they wrote down the Torah Sheba'al Peh, they would have distorted it like they distorted the Bible. They took the Torah and turned it into a Bible. You have to know that. The Bible is not Torah. It's a Bible. That's what they did. And if they had the written Torah Sheba'al Peh, they would have also. And why did they do that? Why did they translate it into Greek? Because they wanted to say, who says you're the chosen people? We have Torah too. We are the real Jews. And that's what those who inherited the philosophy and the culture of Greece, who turned it into Rome. And now the head of that perspective is sitting in Rome. That's where he is, the biggest anti-Semite in the universe. This is what it. Why? Because you can't win. Whatever you do, you can't win. The rest of the world could be murdering thousands and hundreds of thousands and billions of people. They don't care. Didn't bother him. I didn't hear him once say something about the Arab Spring, when what's his name? This Afaz did what he did by Bashir al-Fasi. Whatever he did, he murdered his own people. Did you hear anybody get up there? Were there any demonstrations in the universities? What about in Afghanistan? Any demonstrations there? The poor Afghan people that were being killed by ISIS? None of it. Huh? And the Hague. That's the ultimate. But you hear what I'm trying to get at here. That was one choshech. The one choshech was they wanted to take away the uniqueness of Klal Yisrael, translating Torah into Greek, telling you that we have it too, that we are smart too, that we have wisdom too, so on. The second choshech was to oppose that the Torah comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, meaning that there is a higher value, there is a higher reality, a higher existence. And when the Golus of Yavan took hold, it was really, really terribly effective, because it turned Jews into Greeks, and they're called Misyavnim. Jews who turned into Greeks. They live and wanted to live like under the bubble of of nature. I don't have to go outside of my nature. And this, there is no yontif. When I say there is no yontif, there is no one that, look, we all know that that Pesach, you have to see yourself as if you're really leaving Mitzrayim, correct? We all know that, right? But that's not, that's so disconnected to where I am. Am I building pyramids? How am I being persecuted? Am I, in my situation, am I being persecuted? No. How close am I to Matan Torah or to the Ananei HaKavod? No. I mean, I know it was there, and I'd love to have been there, but I'm not there, and I'm here, and it's so far, far, far away. That goal, that whole system, but the system of but it's real, and that's the source of everything. So therefore, Chanukah is the one that I can see with my own eyes. I see it happening right in front of my eyes. And if we utilize the lichtalach properly, little light at the door, in the window, not making any big deals about telling how I too, you got a big one, I've got even a bigger one. That's crazy. Is that what Yiddishkeit is? Doesn't lie in that. It lies in that little light that says and communicates and testifies Shashchina Shvuya b'Yisrael. And that's when they lit the menorah in the Mishkan. There's another connection here. Why did they have to? You think Hashem needed light? Why was that part of what is that? The process of the avodah in the Mishkan. Why? Hashem didn't need light. It wasn't for Hashem. It was in order to testify, lehoid shashchina shro b'Yisrael, because there were open miracles in the Mishkan with the menorah. We know that the one he lit first, stayed on longer than the one he lit last. How's that possible? Oil doesn't continue to burn when there's not enough oil for it to burn. And he put in exactly the same in each cup. Teretz shashchina shro b'Yisrael. That's the takeaway of Chanukah. That's where we have to be. And in Mitzvah Hashem, that's where we'll all be in celebrating Chanukah as it ought to be. Have a lichtik in Chanukah, everyone. Tomorrow night. Full of light.
I'm sure next week, isn't it?